Hello there, Monstars. Welcome to our next flip video, and in this video we're going to be ordering fractions. Our I can statement is I can order fractions from least to greatest on a number line. We're going to talk about why that's important. We in the past have been able to order our numbers on a number line when we're dealing with whole numbers. So when we were estimating, we ordered fractions by ones, like 1, 2, 3. We can even order by tens. We could say 10, 20, 30. And then we even went up to hundreds. 100, 200, and I don't have room. 300. And we're going to be doing something similar to that, but instead of working with whole numbers, we're going to be working with our fractions. And we're going to order our fractions from least to greatest. And that's important because as we move to measurement, as we work with rulers, there's fractional parts on a ruler that we need to know in order to measure things accurately. So on our number line, remember, we always start at 0, and we always have benchmarks in our number line to help us keep our measurements equal. Okay, so keep that in mind as we move forward. Okay, I have 4 fractions here. And I need to determine which one is the least and which one's the greatest. We've had a lot of practice with this. We've been using multiple strategies. We've been drawing pictures. And we've also been using our butterfly trick. Well, for this first example, I want us to draw a picture, okay? And typically we make one fraction strip for each fraction, and we're still going to do that, but I'm going to show you a way to stack your fraction strips on top of each other so that comparing them is a little bit easier. So what I'd like you to do on your whisk is draw a large, thick rectangle, okay? Something like that. And we're going to take our fraction strips and we're going to stack them upon each other. So I made 4 fraction strips stacked up, and I did that because we have 4 fractions that we're working with here. Okay, so I have the fraction of 1/2, I have the fraction of 3/4, I have the fraction of 1/4, and I have the fraction of 4/4. Okay? Now I'm going to use this top fraction strip to represent 1/2. Now always when I am working with fraction strips, I always make my benchmark, which is about halfway. Okay? And I try my best. It doesn't always equal, but it's important when our fraction bars are stacked on top of each other, that if this is my halfway benchmark, this is my halfway benchmark for all of my fractions. So I'm going to extend that halfway benchmark all the way through, and that's going to help me keep on track so I can easily see which one's least and which one's greatest. So my first fraction is 1/2, and remember that's 1 out of 2 parts. So this top fraction has 2 parts. I'm only dealing with this fraction strip right here. I'm not dealing with these right now. So to show 1/2, I need to shade in 1 out of 2 parts. And that's going to represent my 1/2 fraction. Let's look at 3/4. I'm dealing with this second fraction strip now. My denominator is 4, so how many equal parts do I need on my second fraction strip? You're right, I need 4. Well, I have my halfway benchmark. What's half of 4? It's 2. So I need 2 equal parts on this side of my fraction strip, and I need 2 equal parts on this side of my fraction strip. So I'm going to split each side into 2. So now when I count, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. My numerator is 3 3/4. So that must mean that I need to shade in how many fourths? You're right, I need to shade in 3/4. So I'm going to shade in 1, 2, 3. Make sure you're doing that on your paper as well. So right now, if I'm just looking and if I stopped and I was only dealing with 1/2 and 3/4, which fraction is greater? Yes, 3/4 is greater than 1/2. But we have two more fractions that we're working with. Our next fraction is 1/4, right here. And we're going to use this third fraction strip. I have my halfway benchmark to help me keep my pieces equal. My denominator is 4, so how many pieces do I need to split this fraction strip into? You're right, I need to split it into 4ths. And if you noticed, when I split my second fraction strip into 4ths, I kind of created a new benchmark of 1/4 here, and I'm going to continue that benchmark through my fraction strips to help me keep my pieces equal. So for 1/4, okay, each fractional piece stands for 1/4. My numerator is 1. Up here it's 1. So I need to shade in one of my 4 pieces. And please do that on your paper as well. Okay. My next fraction is 4/4. That's over here, 4/4. So how many equal pieces do I need? Again, I need 4 equal pieces on my last fraction strip. And how many pieces am I going to shade in? Each piece stands for a 4th. You're right. I'm going to shade in 4 of the 4ths. And we know when our numerator and our denominator are the same value, then that means we have, you're right, one whole number. So 4/4 equals the same as 1 whole. And just let me rewrite what each fraction strip value is so we keep them organized in our thinking. So my top fraction strip represents 1/2. My second fraction strip is 3/4. My third fraction strip is 1/4. And my last fraction strip is 4/4, or 1 whole. Okay, now that I have determined how the quantity of each fraction, I now need to order them on a number line. And when we make our number line, when we're drawing it out ourselves, we want to make sure that our number line is the same length as our fraction strips, because that's going to make it really easy for us to bring down our fractions. If I continue my benchmarks down, here's my 1/2 benchmark. See how that lines up all the way through? And what other benchmarks became apparent as we were making our fraction strips? Yeah, we have this 1/4 benchmark here. So I'm going to continue that down and make that on my number line. And then we also had, when we were splitting up into 4ths, we had this benchmark come up. So your benchmarks continue down to your number line to help you equal, because you need to equally space out your numbers just like on a ruler on your number line. So let's start to the left of our number line and move to the right. So we're going to start from least to greatest. Well, what is the value that always begins our number line? Where do we always begin? You're right, 0. So write that 0 down. If we look at our fractions through here, okay, do we have a fraction that ends at this benchmark? We do. It's our blue fraction, which was 1/4. So 1/4 would be our least fraction, and it's going to be on our first benchmark line. Let's continue on. Do we have a fraction that ends at this benchmark? We do. It's the fraction that we made in red, which is 1/2. So that 1/2 is going to be written right here. It's going to continue on with our number line. What comes next? Which fraction comes next? If we go to our next benchmark. Our yellow stopped, our second fractional strip, which was 3/4. Don't be confused by this 1/4 here. This 1/4 is the fractional part. This fraction actually represents 3/4. 1, 2, 3 out of 4. So I'm going to write my 3/4 on my next benchmark. And did we have any fractions that ended at this benchmark when I continue my line? Yes, our bottom fraction, which was 4/4, ended at this last benchmark. So I'm drawing a picture of my fractional strips But I'm also representing them from least to greatest by writing them on a number line. And they're starting at the value of 0, and then they're increasing at each benchmark. Okay? Okay, my friends, I'm going to leave you with this slide. You have 4 fractions here. I want you to try to order these fractions on a number line on your own, and then bring it in, and we're going to talk about it in class. So one important thing that you need to know is when you draw your thick rectangle to stack all your fraction strips on top of each other, if you look closely, you see that you do not have an even denominator on every single fraction. So your benchmark is not going to be 1/2 any longer, but it's going to be into thirds. Okay, and that's going to be a clue that will help you order these fractions. So try your best. Bring it in. I know it's a little bit challenging right now. We're going to go over it in class, and it's going to help as we work through it and move toward measurement. So here's your joke. Where do snowmen keep their money? Where do they keep their money? Okay, we'll see you guys on Monday. I hope you have a great weekend, and goodbye.